Howbeit, treasured ones, YaHUaH is my praise. And welcome to the read review recording of the first hour prelude. During the first hour, where there was light and he saw it was right, of this 8th day of the 5th month, according to my numbering of days. It is also the first weekly day of rest for the 5th month, also known as Sabbath or Shabbat. Day 228, according to the Julian calendar, on or about the pagan calendar date of August 16th, 2025. Location is picnic table, Belmont Park, in and around the Purported territory, Lincoln, Nebraska, without the United States. So the wind is a little hectic, so I'm just going to record this page by page. This is a 3-page, this is a trust law, redeemed land trust law study based off of Genesis 1. This is page 2. And page 3. So I will First hour prelude, a literal copy, drawn forth with blankets, beans, and bullets delivery services. All Almighty loud rights reserved by the finger of the Almighty One, with the blood of the Anointed One, from the breath of the Allocated One. First hour prelude, a literal copy. In the beginning, chapter 1. The first day. In the beginning, Almighty created waters of renown and flat plain ground. And flat plain ground was without form and void, and darkness was upon the deep, and the rushing mighty wind of Almighty moved upon the waters, and Almighty said, let there be light. And there be light, and Almighty saw light, that light be right. And Almighty separated light from darkness, and Almighty called light day, and darkness Almighty called night. A season of greater outer darkness, a season of greater inner light, the first day. The second day, again Almighty said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let the expanse separate waters of deliverance from waters of renown. Then Almighty made the expanse and parted the waters which were under the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse. And it was so. And Almighty called the expanse waters of deliverance. A season of greater outer darkness, a season of greater inner light, the second day. The third day, Almighty said again, let waters under the waters of deliverance be gathered into one place, and let dry land appear. And it was so. And Almighty called dry land flat plain ground, and Almighty called the gathering together of waters waves of salt water. And Almighty saw that waves of salt water be right. Then Almighty said, let flat plain ground bud forth bud of the herb, seed of the seed, the fruitful tree, which beareth fruit according to its kind, which may have his seed in itself upon flat plain ground. And it was so. And the flat plain ground brought forth the bud of the herb, that seedeth the seed according to his kind, also the tree that yieldeth fruit, which have his seed in itself according to its kind. And Almighty saw dry land be right. A season of greater outer darkness, a season of greater inner light, the third day. Turn with me to page 2. The fourth day. And Almighty said, let there be lights in the expanse of the waters of deliverance, to separate inner light from outer darkness, and let the lights be for signs, and for appointed times, and for days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the waters of deliverance, to bestow existing light upon flat plain ground. And it was so. Almighty then made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. Almighty also made the appointed lights. And Almighty placed the lights in the expanse of the waters of deliverance to shine upon flat plain ground, and to rule in the day and in the night, and to separate light from darkness. And Almighty saw that separating light from darkness be right. An appointed time of greater existing light, an appointed time of lesser existing light, and appointed lights, the fourth day. The fifth day, afterwards Almighty said, let the waters bring forth in abundance every creeping thing that have existence, and let the fowl fly upon flat plain ground in the expanse of the waters of deliverance. Then Almighty created great whales, and everything existing and moving which the waters brought forth in abundance according to their kind, and every feathered fowl according to his kind. And it was so. And Almighty saw great whales, feathered fowl be right. And Almighty bestowed them, saying, bring forth fruit and multiply, and fill the waves of salt water, and let the fowl multiply in the flat plain ground. An appointed time a greater existing light, appointed time a lesser existing light, and appointed lights, the fifth day. Turn with me to page 3. The sixth day. Moreover, Almighty said, let flat plain ground bring forth the existing thing according to his kind, cattle which creepeth, excuse me, I'll do this over. Moreover, Almighty said, let flat plain ground bring forth the existing thing according to his kind, cattle that which creepeth, and creatures of flat plain ground according to his kind. And it was so. And Almighty made creatures of flat plain ground according to his kind, and the cattle according to his kind, and every creeping thing of flat plain ground according to his kind. Furthermore, Almighty said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and let man made in our image rule over the fish of the waves of salt water, and over the fowl of the waters of deliverance, and over the creatures, and over all the flat plain ground, and over every existing thing that creepeth and moveth on flat plain ground. Thus Almighty created the man in his image. In the image of Almighty he created him. Almighty created them, male and female. And Almighty bestowed men, both male and female, made in his image. Almighty said to men, both male and female, made in his image, bring forth fruit and multiply, and fill flat plain ground, and subdue flat plain ground, and rule over the fish of the waves of salt water, and rule over the fowl and the waters of deliverance, and rule over every creature that moveth upon flat plain ground. And Almighty said, behold, I have bestowed you every herb bearing seed which be upon all flat plain ground, and every tree wherein be fruit of a tree bearing seed, that shall be to you for meat. Likewise to every creature of flat plain ground, and to every fowl of the waters of deliverance, and to everything that moveth upon flat plain ground, which have existence in itself. Every green herb shall be for meat. And it was so. An appointed time of greater existing light, an appointed time a lesser existing light, and appointed lights, the sixth day. Praise YaHUaH, and thank you YaHUsHua from branches of boundaries. YaHUaH, I praise, plead, and petition that this reading, review, and recording of First Hour Prelude, a literal copy, a Redeemed Land Trust Law study based on Genesis 1, at the first hour, where there was light and he saw it was right, be a sweet smelling aroma for your nostrils. And anyways, all praises to YaHUaH, my YaHUaH, And thank you, YaHUsHua, the pre-existent anointed one, from branches of boundaries. Acknowledgement, appreciation, and acceptance of the sent forth breath of existence, the existing earthen ancestors, the existential messengers from wombs of tombs, and the existent and expanding and elevating flat plain ground. Any failure is mine alone. Let it be so.